Assalamu alaikum everyone. Can you all hear me? Okay, a very warm welcome to everyone present in this class and assalamu alaikum to everyone watching us live right now. My name is Mavra Ahmad and I have been associated with the education sector for almost 6 years now. And in all these years, I have taught different age groups starting all the way down from elementary till college and university level. SAT training is one of the many things that I do, and for quite some time now, SAT English training, and this is one platform where I have been working for a while now. So in all these years, what I've observed is that teaching is basically a two-way learning process. So whenever I give a lecture, while I am delivering a lot of information, knowledge, there is a lot of content that I am sharing with my students. I'm also learning from them in the process. And there's a lot of potential in each one of those students that I have had the experience to teach so far, including you all as well. So be it any age group, all the way down till the elementary level, all of them, they have their own potential. Some of them have many hidden qualities that are yet to be discovered. And I'm sure same is the case with all of you. So before we formally begin with this SAT English class, this 3-day workshop, I would like to have a general information about my audience here. How many of you are from Lahore here? Please raise your hands. All right. So I think majority of you are from Lahore. And how many of you are from an A-levels background? Okay. And the rest of you are from an FA, FSC background, right? Intermediate background. Okay. So thank you for this information. So this is basically a general idea about the students that I have today. SAT English basically, a language that you're being tested on. And of course, a lot of apprehensions about the SAT exam. What is it? It is very hard. Time management, time constraint, very strict, time management schedule is there. Yes, it is there. And I'm sure a lot of you have this general perception that while you're, working on your college applications and you have your other exam pressure and all of these things going on, you have this thing called SAT. You have to prepare for that as well. But in the long run, whatever you're going to learn throughout this process of, preparing for SAT English as well as math, because there are, these two sections in which they test you. So you will see that the skills that you gain in this SAT testing system, they will help you in your career paths, whatever you choose, whichever profession you opt for. So all of these things, they are going to matter. Whatever you apply in your SAT examination, this is going to go a long way in your future as well. So SAT English, any idea what is it basically about? Anyone, by the show of hands? Right? Okay, so you're right. He just said that there are 3 sections: reading, writing, and the third one is, of course, so yes, and we have passages in all 3 of them. And the passages could be based on any of the subject areas such as science. It could be about philosophy. It could be about a social issue. So these are basically the kind of passages, the content that you have to go through when you're doing your SAT exam, English exam. So thank you for the response. Moving on, yes, it is all about passages, all about reading. So basically, the gist of SAT English is, I would like to sum up in 2 words. It's reading and practice. And we'll find out how and why these 2 words would really matter when you're going to, prepare for your SAT English exam. And of course, a lot of focus, targeted reading, all of these things are always going to matter as well. So let's begin with what exactly the structure is all about. So know how to bridge the gap. What do you see? Anyone who would like to answer? What is the idea that you're getting from this picture in front of you? Okay. So the bridge, the gap between knowledge and performance. You might be wondering, what does it have to do with this 3-day SAT workshop? Why are we seeing this picture? So guys, basically, these two are the things that matter, and you have to bridge the gap between them. In this 3-day workshop, in these 5 to 6 hours that we are going to spend together, and we are going to interact with each other, we are not only going to learn about the basic structure and the format and the pattern of what SAT English is all about, but we're also going to look at the questions, the pattern, the words, the context of the questions, the kind of questions that we are expected to answer in the SAT English exam. So we would have a general idea of the kind of questions that we are going to have, and how do you tackle those questions, how do you answer them, so and how do you attempt them, right? So we would be learning the skills, the tips, the strategies, and they will all come in very when we're going to be actually, attempting the paper. So this 3-day workshop is going to be about the structure and all those tips and strategies, and then practice would continue. After that, of course, you're going to do that as well. So knowledge, where does it come from? Knowledge is obviously going to come from the practice that you're going to do, the understanding of the format of the SAT English, right? If you know that there's a reading section, there's a writing section, and then there is an essay section, what exactly are they expecting of you in the reading section, in the writing section? So we'll have a look at that as well, and we'll understand what exactly is the reading section all about. Yes, we have to read passages, but what then later, right? And performance. Yes. SAT English, again, time management. I know there are a lot of brilliant mathematicians sitting over here. I'm sure all of us, most of us can do actually wonders at maths. But the thing is that when it comes to a language and we have to prove that we have a good command over it, it's sometimes a bit of a challenge for us. So performance is basically the focus, the endurance, the time management, and managing the stress levels when you're in a panic situation, that how will I manage my time, and how will I be doing it well enough so that I could get a very good score, and then I could, eventually I could get enrolled into a very renowned university. So because our ultimate target is a very good university. So what exactly is SAT? I'm sure you all know it's an aptitude test. It tests your skills. But the thing is that you have to have the knowledge about it, yes, and you need to perform well as well. So when sometimes you are performing well, maybe you lack the knowledge to attempt the questions. And when sometimes you have all the knowledge, you're very confident, oh, I have a very good idea about the SAT English portion. But how will I attempt it? How will I manage my time? That's where your practice comes. That's where your performance comes. So all clear so far? All right, moving on. How do we bridge the gap now? Where do we need to do that? What areas? So there's a broad range of content. Like one of our students just told, there could be a variety of passages. And interestingly, most of them are based on authentic information. It's mostly non-fiction. So the text is mostly, there's a broad range of content from a variety of subject areas, be it literature, be it history. It could be a science-based passage. It could be a social issue passage. It could be anything, right? High stakes, yes, of course. High stakes, why? Because once again, time management, there's a strict time constraint, and sometimes we think that these questions are very easy and we just quickly run through them, but then that is where we lose marks. Maybe those questions are, they need some more of our concentration. Maybe we didn't read the passage from where our concentration was required. So there are risks at every stage of the SAT English portion, so you have to manage yourself accordingly. Rigidly timed. We'll look at how much time we have for the SAT English reading, writing, and essay section, and then you would definitely have this anxiety that, oh my God, this is not my thing, this time is not enough. But trust me, with practice, you would ultimately learn that you can manage all the questions, even if some of them are difficult. You could go through them, you could run through some questions, and then you could, once you're done with most of them, you could go back to the difficult ones and maybe go through them once again. But then again, your ultimate target is to score well. So do as many questions as you can, right? Then there is an essay in 50 minutes. अब सब ये सोच रहे होंगे 50 minutes essay, wow. Actually, I think 50 minutes are pretty good. And I think essay, you could do really well in the essay part if you know the techniques, the strategies of how to go about it. Because 50 minutes is more than enough to do an essay, and we'll get to know how they are enough. We'll have a look at that as well. So moving on. Now this is the SAT pyramid. It begins from the bottom, know the content. Of course, if you have an idea that what kind of passages are going to be there, what subject areas, when you read a passage, you instantly realize that, this is a science-based passage. There are facts in it, there are statistics in it, right? And then you have, some concepts, some skills, the basic idea of the format, so you go about it. Know the test. Of course, you know that this is my reading section and I have some, some passages that I'm going to do. You have to have an idea, a general idea about how the test is going to go. And there's a flow that you have to maintain, right? And then on the top, know the strategies. The most important, I think, and the top of the pyramid. Why? Because I think if you know the tips, the strategies of how to tackle the questions, because there'll be a variety of questions, like I already said, you would be able to apply those strategies in the questions, and then it would be really, the process would slightly be more simpler for you people. So it's not all that difficult, right? If you want to achieve something, you have to give it your best. And that is only possible if you learn some skills, some strategies, some tips. They will always help you to do the test. So that is where your application of content, knowledge to the test comes. The big picture. Why do we give the SAT? Why is it important? 4 different components, reading section, 52 questions. And what is the type of questions? Any idea? Kis tarah ke questions hote hain? Yes? Exactly, he said MCQs, absolutely right. There are MCQ-based questions, you have options. And to me, MCQs, the idea sounds really familiar because A-level students, and I'm sure intermediate students, they are familiar with the concept, unke liye itna mushkil nahi hota. Writing and language section, 44 questions. Then essay writing, 1 question. And then the math section, 58 questions. So that's the number of questions. How much time is allocated to each section? We'll look in the next slides. Okay, so why is SAT important? It's required for admission in universities. So basically in it's a basically US-based testing system for enrollment in the university programs. And for LUMS also, you have to give the SAT if you want to get enrolled into LUMS. And SAT essay is not an option if you have to, get enrolled into LUMS. It's a must. It's mandatory for LUMS. You cannot skip the essay section if you want to get enrolled into LUMS. And you will get to know this, that actually it helps if you do the SAT essay portion. It's not all that hard after all. Okay, then the test score ranges between 400 to as high as 1600, that's the max. No negative marking. Now, I feel that this thing, that there's no negative marking is somewhat, a positive in your case, because you could do as many questions as you can, maybe run along some difficult questions and come back to them later, but try to do as many questions as you can, because your ultimate aim is to score well, to score a high mark, right? So that is why you're not penalized for a wrong answer. You do as many questions as you can, right? So that is basically your ultimate aim. Any questions so far? Okay, so we'll move on. SAT, time it. So time is basically what SAT is all about. So reading section, 65 minutes. 52 questions. So roughly around 1 minute and a few seconds for each MCQ-based question. There will be a variety of questions, easy, hard, and we'll get to know about them as well. Writing section, 35 minutes and 44 questions. Now here we have less than 50 seconds and approximately 47 seconds for each MCQ-based question. And then we have math, 80 minutes, 58 questions. And then essay, 50 minutes, one question about a passage that you will get for the essay. So that's the time allotted to each section. Now this is basically a standardized test, and this is the curve, the SAT distribution curve. You could see how the score ranges between 200 to 800, and the peak score, right? It's somewhere between 4 to 600, right? So that's basically the distribution curve. All the mathematicians here, I'm sure they could make a good guess of what this is all about. All right. Now this is the score range, 200 to 800. Here it says percentile, the word percentile. So what basically percentile means is that if you are on the 80th percentile, that means that you've done 80%, you have done better than 80% of the students that have, done the SAT exam, that have given the SAT test. So that is basically the concept of percentile. Average SAT score for the year 2017, evidence-based reading and writing 533, math 527, and the total score out of 1600 was 1060. So that was the average SAT score for the year 2017, right? Long-term goals. What do we achieve out of this almost 3 hour and 50-minute hassle? What are we getting out of this? This is all what we are getting out of this, which is going to be really helpful in the long run. Reading comprehension skills. So it's not basically, the comprehension skills that we've always developed ever since we were in our school days. It's something different. It's reading in between the lines. It's targeted reading. So that is where your reading skills are going to be tested. Mental math, very important. I'm sure you all know the importance of solving mental math questions quickly and, in an efficient way. So that is where they are testing you. Focus and endurance, how you manage your stress levels without panicking, without the fear of losing it all, failing. So that is where they test you. And that is going to be really helpful in the long run when you're going to be, in your professional career paths, in your professional life also. This is going to be really helpful for you. If you learn to manage your stress levels, if you manage your deadlines well, if you know that this question has a particular time frame, the section has to be given this much time, so you'll learn all of that through this SAT exam. Grammar, style, and essay structure. So all of these things are also going to matter. Your grammatical skills, not saying that you will have to have, a wonderful, flawless vocabulary. No, SAT is not about that. Yes, you have to have a good command over language, but vocabulary and, you don't have to be you don't need to have very well-worded sentences, just a simple flow of language that is there in your writing. And essay structure, the style of your writing. Of course, it has to be, the sentences, the transitions, and everything else should be in a flow. Something that when the examiner reads your essay, he is convinced that, this student has potential, and he knows how to write better, how to analyze, how to, build up an argument. So that's basically all what you learn out of this SAT exam. These are the long-term goals. Any questions? All right. How to speed up the process? Targeted reading. Now, guys, I feel that I really want to emphasize on this particular point. Targeted reading बहुत important है SAT में. We will get, really long passages, 500 to 750 long passages. So you will have to, it's not necessary that you try to, infer or make meaning of every single word that you're reading. Just read according to the context of the questions and keep this in mind that you only have to look for answers to those questions, not for any extra information. You're not going to do that. So wahan pe your time management comes in, right? So please make sure that you're not looking for any unnecessary detail while you're reading your passages. SAT specific practice, fundamentals. Know the format, know the structure, know how to go about the questions, have the tips and strategies in your mind. So these are the fundamentals, time management and everything. Practice material from College Board's official study guide. So this is basically really important. Practice is the key. बहुत ज़्यादा practice. जैसे math में कहते हैं practice करें. ऐसी SAT में भी you have to practice a lot. As many papers as you can. From all the resources that you have, any websites, any books that you have based on SAT papers, past papers, whatever you have. Follow a study schedule. I'm sure most of us will follow a study schedule, especially during our exams. So considering it as a very important exam of our life, we should maintain a study schedule. How much time are we going to allot to the reading section, the writing section? Put your clocks, set your timers, all of these things, right? Know your strategies and tips. Once again, we are going to, in this 3-day workshop, the gains, the takeaways from this 3-day workshop is basically that you learn how to ace the exam in an efficient way. Because obviously practice is going to continue, but what you need to learn is how to understand and how to, implement those strategies and tips when you are attempting a question. How to various kinds of questions, various types of questions. We will get the next 2 days. Moving on. Now this is the summary. Once again, we'll go through the entire structure. Sections, evidence-based reading and writing, 65 minutes for the reading section, 35 minutes for the writing and language section. Questions, 52 questions in 65 minutes for the reading section, 44 questions for the writing and language section. And then the score ranges between 200 to 800. And then math, 25-minute no calculator section, 55-minute the calculator section, 20 questions with no calculator, 38 questions with a calculator. And then the same score range between 200 to 800. Any questions? Anything that has not been clear so far, please let me know. Yes? Sorry, come again? There is no syllabus. There is just a general pattern that we have to follow. There is no, you will have different passage every time. You won't get, the same passage from any previous year once again in one of your SAT exams, right? So it would be different each time. What matters is how much you have practiced to attempt the questions, okay? And how much time will you practice them? Yes?
Miss, what kind of topics we are supposed to ask in an essay?
In an essay, let me give you an example. There will be an author, there will be a general introduction about, the passage in the first 4 lines, which is generally called the pretext. And then the passage is going to be talking about how the author, there will be a general statement about the author, a general claim that he's making in the passage, let's say about global warming, that it's affecting the world. Now he's going to build upon that claim by using some persuasive techniques. अब वो किस तरह से audience को, reader को persuade कर रहा है by making his claim credible, what evidence has he used to make his claim credible? So that is where, you will be analyzing the passage. So this is what the passage is basically going to be all about.
What would be the weightage of essay in the SAT exam?
The weightage.
Weightage of essay.
Since it is, it's usually, let's come to the next few slides and you'll get an idea about the marks and the, the time allotment and everything.
Okay, thanks.
Yes. Okay. To fill in the? Okay. Okay. So your question is that what is the best way to read quickly and how to fill the bubble sheet while you're reading, right? Okay, so there is no one best way. there is no one right way. Each one of us, deciphers the meaning out of the text that we are reading in our own ways. But the thing is that we will be seeing that there are a few strategies of, taking out the most important points from the text that we read, and that is based on the questions that are asked. So we will have an idea about the questions first, and then we are going to look for the answers for them within the passage that we are going to read. So this is how we are going to speed up the reading process, where we are not just going to look for any unnecessary details. We are only going to stick to the context of answers of the questions that we are looking for. And plus, yes, it's always helpful if you make small pointers, if you highlight the important points. That always helps. So whoever is fond of using, highlighters and making pointers, I'm sure it would be really helpful. Any other question? Bubble in the answers? I'm sorry, please, could you come again? Shade the answers. Yeah, you should be doing that side by side, simultaneously. Right? Yes.
How do we get the minimum score of 200 without even attempting the passage? That's something which is not understand.
How do we,
Score of
okay.
minimum 200, yeah.
Of course, you are not going to get 200 without attempting anything. So that's not possible.
It's mentioned the minimum score is 200, like in any case.
ये वो students होंगे जिन्होंने कुछ किया होगा और बाकी majority questions छोड़ दिए होंगे, right? So probably these are, nobody would leave a SAT exam completely,
The minimum score should be 0 now, according to the law.
Okay, fine. All right, any other question? Yes. To the essay? So she's asking how much time would we give to the essay? Like I said, 50 minutes. 20 minutes, ideally 15 to 20 minutes to the reading of the passage, analyzing, making out meaning, trying to understand the general claim of the passage, and then 30 minutes to write the essay.
Yeah, I was asking, what will we be studying about the essay during this workshop?
Okay, so I'm sure you all got your prompts right now. You have 2 worksheets. Basically, one is an essay prompt. There is a passage. And the other one is an essay written by a student that got a very good score. So, so that is basically a perfect example of how you're going to go about it. And rest you'll get to know in the slides, okay? Yes. So shall we move on?
Excuse me, ma'am.
Who's asking this question? Yes. Yes.
Ma'am, can you please explain the reading and writing questions with an example? Because I'm not still sure that how can you answer the reading and writing questions in an MCQ?
Okay, let me give you an example. Let's say in the reading section, they have asked you a question from a particular line, and they might ask you the meaning of a word, right? And of course, you won't have a dictionary to find out the meaning. So how will you find out that meaning? They say that in line 58, the author has used this word. What does it mean? What does it imply? So how would you find that out? By inferring the meaning from the passage, from within the passage. So what's the best way to work on that? Read the previous lines, read the next few lines, and you will get an idea about the general meaning of that word, right? So this is just an example of a question, a kind of question that you could get in the reading passage and in the writing passage as well. In the writing passage, you might get questions like, what is the best word that could be used here instead of this word? Is this transition word used correctly? What is another option? Or, it could be related to the flow of the passages, anything like that. Yes?
And ma'am, what is the ideal length for an essay?
Yes, ideal length. All of those questions are going to be answered in these next few slides, but let me tell you, you will have the sheets in front of you, and you will have to, according to the number of sheets, you will be writing the essay. So ideally, between 450 to 650 words, 500 words, I guess, in 30 minutes, 30 to 50 minutes up, 500 words likh sakte hain aaram se. Okay, so that's the ideal limit.
Thank you.
Anyone else with a question? Or shall we move on? Yes. Yes, there are a lot of websites related to that. There's a College Board website. He's asking about the resource, the past papers that, where are they available over the internet. So there are a lot of websites.
Can
I'm
we-
going to let you know about them. One of them is College Board. There are a lot of them. I'll share the links with you, okay? We'll get to look at them as well. All right. So now we are going to move on to the next important set of slides. The essay, which I'm sure is horrifying a lot of you people. But there's nothing to worry about it. These worksheets, these prompts that we have just given you, they are basically going to help you when you're going to go through the passage, and then when you're going to read the essay, you will understand how to, develop an argument, how to write down, how to draft a response to the passage that you're going to be given in the essay. All right. SAT essay. Why do we do it? The purpose of the new SAT essay is to assess your ability to analyze an author's argument. To write a strong essay, you will need to focus on how the author uses evidence, reasoning, and other rhetorical techniques to build an argument and make it convincing. Now, guys, the purpose, the aim of the SAT essay is to build up your analytical skills, your logical reasoning skills, your critical thinking skills. All of these skills are basically going to be tested when you write your essay. Because ultimately, you are writing a response to the passage that you have just read. So it's going to be based on the argument that the author has made within the passage, and how has he made it credible enough that you are convinced. And there might be a possibility that some of you would think that we are not convinced. The author has not used enough evidence. Maybe there is something that is, lacking somewhere, and maybe he could have used another way of, making it credible, of justifying the information. So that is where you are going to build up an argument on the basis of the text of the passage and the general claim that the author is making. Your essay, your response to the passage should examine the author's choices in presenting the argument rather than the informational content of the passage. You will want to discuss how the author assembles the argument rather than restate what the argument is. Yes, guys, very, very important. Some of us have this habit of, when we go through the passage of the essay, we usually, paraphrase the entire passage in our own words, and we rewrite it for our essay. This is not what is required, right? What is basically, required out of the essay that you're writing for your SAT English exam is basically your analysis of the piece of writing that you have just read. So, आपने उसका analysis करना है कि whatever the author has written, is it meaningful? And if it is, how so? Okay? So you will not be writing the same information as it is in the passage. Instead, you'll be analyzing it, right? So moving on. Yes, now there was someone who was asking me about the grading of the essay. Now this is basically the grading criteria: reading, analysis, writing. So RAW, raw, 3 criterion on which you are being tested, and 4 marks for each. Now, I would like to clarify this thing here, that your essay is usually checked by 2 examiners, so as to avoid any bias by any one examiner, right, to make the case fairer. So usually when they check your essay, 4 marks are from one examiner and 4 marks from the other one. But your overall score will always be out of 12. You won't get to know that, what was the separate score from each of the examiners. You will always get your score out of 4 for each of the criteria: reading, analysis, writing. And in the next few slides, we are going to look at what is required out of each of these grading criterion. What are they looking for when they are, grading your essay? So it's basically out of 12, 4 marks for each criterion. So does this answer the question of how the essay is graded? Yes or no? Okay. So this is basically an example of a prompt. This is basically the last paragraph, and this box is the question. I'm going to read it to you. Write an essay in which you explain how Peter S. Goodman builds an argument to persuade his audience that news organizations should increase the amount of professional foreign news coverage provided to people in the United States. Now you see what kind of a passage it might be. In your essay, analyze how Goodman uses one or more of the features listed in the box above or features of your own choice to strengthen the logic and persuasiveness of his argument. Be sure that your analysis focuses on the most relevant features of the passage. Now guys, there are a few things that I would like to make you understand before we actually get, dig deeper into the details of the SAT essay. Every writer, every author, whoever writes the passage, uses ways of making his information credible and tries to justify the information. How he does that is basically, maybe he's using some generalization. Maybe he's using, rhetorical questions. I'll explain each of these terms as well. And sometimes an author uses his own personal experience, right? So it could be a personal story, a short story, an anecdote, right? And sometimes there could be diction, poetic language, or a neutral tone. And sometimes the author might be using statistics. How many of you are aware of ethos, pathos, and logos? If anyone could explain, yes. What are ethos, pathos, and logos? Pathos is the emotional appeal, right? 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 Absolutely right. So she said that pathos, logos, and ethos, these are three different types of persuasive elements, techniques, in which an author is trying to persuade his reader. She said that pathos means emotional way to convince the reader, use of emotional language or something of that sort. Logos, statistics, facts and figures, that's another way of convincing the reader to believe in what the author is trying to say or the claim that he's trying to build upon. Ethos, the moral nature of the writing piece that you have in front of you. How the author, has written the entire passage. What is his language like? So what is his, belief? So that is basically ethos. So these are some of the ways in which, the author is trying to persuade you. So I'm sure all of us, when we are going to go through the passages of the essay, will have one or more of any of these in our passages that we are going to have for the essay. ऐसा हो ही नहीं सकता कि author ने इनमें से कुछ भी ना use किया हो and he is still trying to convince the reader. How will you believe the author otherwise if he has not used any of these things? Yes. Sorry? Ethos. Ethos is basically if the author is, what is his tone? If he is if he's getting too emotional, if he's too biased, if he is, what kind of tone he has developed, what character is there of his writing, what is his moral nature. So that is basically ethos, and it reflects in his writing, right? For instance, if you read anybody's passage, you will get a general idea what that person's belief is, right? The moral nature of that person. So that is basically ethos. All right, so coming back to the question, let me read the last few lines again. In your essay, analyze how Goodman uses one or more of the features listed in the box above or features of your own choice. So it could be any of these features, and there are some features that, there's a list of features usually given to you in the passage. You can see the information there in your essay prompts. So to strengthen the logic and persuasiveness of his argument. How is he building upon his argument? How is he making the information credible? How is he doing justice to his case? So you will be looking for any of these elements in the passage, within the passage. So let's move on. SAT essay. The essay portion is optional. For some universities, yes it is, but compulsory for LUMS. So like I already stated, it is a must if you have to get enrolled into LUMS. They want you to give the SAT essay section. They want you to do it. Passages are authentic texts that have previously been published. Now this essay prompt that you have, when you're going to read it, you will see that the author has used a lot of facts. The author has used a personal anecdote, a rhetorical question to make his reader emotional. So, and the information is mostly based on facts. It is non-fictional text. So the passages are based on authentic texts. Keep this in mind. You must read and produce a written analysis. Of course, you're writing your essay, it has to be well crafted, it has to be written, on the sheets provided to you. Do not write your opinion, but construct an argument. Extremely important. You are not going to write down your own opinion. The essay passage is about global warming, and the author is saying, oh my God, global warming is, an issue, and it's affecting the world, the climate, the animals, and the sea life, the marine life, and everything of that sort. So you're not going to say, yes, I also believe in that. Global warming is affecting the population, the world in a very negative manner, and it is having a negative impact on the climate and everything. So you're not going to write that down, a big no to that. You will be writing down that what exactly is the author, how is he making his case credible enough for you to believe in his claim. If you think that he's right, why so? Where is the evidence? You have to look for that, and then you have to state that in your essay. This is what the student has done in the essay that has been given to you. Use textual evidence to support main ideas. Again, very important. Some of us, we like to quote things from the passage, but why are we quoting it? We have to give a reason, and we could, paraphrase some of the sentences where we see that it's evidence, and we could also directly quote it in the form of, using speech marks, and we could directly quote it from the passage. So either way would work when we are going to write down the evidence, textual evidence from the passage. Evaluation. How do they evaluate you? Based on the skills shown in reading, analysis, and writing. अब हम आगे देखेंगे कि in 3 criterion पे how do they actually grade us? What do they look for? Each SAT essay consists of one passage between 650 and 750 words. How many of you are avid readers here? Okay, quite a so that's not much a number, but that's fine. Eventually, you will develop the habit of reading when you get into the flow of practicing the SAT papers. So there is a passage that has words between 650 to 750. You will read and then respond to them. You will have 50 minutes to complete the SAT essay. Okay, now the breakdown. This is something that's really important, and I want your attention over here. Raw. What does raw mean? Good. So everyone's awake. Great. All right. So reading is for 4 marks. Understanding, comprehension of the text. Yes. If the examiner is going to see if you've actually understood the content of the passage, if you have read it with concentration, if you've read it well enough. Show that you have grasped the main idea in the first paragraph. Very important. Guys, this essay prompt that has been given to you, the passage, when you're going to go through it, you would see that you will eventually, you will immediately get to know what is the main idea, the general claim of the passage, and what is the passage going to be all about. So, first paragraph padke, we will have, a general idea about what the passage is going to be talking about. So, this is basically what happens when you read the first paragraph of the passage. Use textual evidence, paraphrasing, like I just told you, direct quotation, or both, effectively to demonstrate your understanding. For instance, if the author is saying something, if the author, for instance, has, used a personal experience to, make his information, make his claim credible, you could quote that personal anecdote, not the entire story, of course, but maybe one line from there. You could either write it as a direct quotation, or you could paraphrase it in your own words. So because you are going to write down in your essay that this particular portion of the essay, it made me believe the claim, and how so, you're going to explain that as well. Before I move on to analysis, I want you guys to remember this, that there are two ways of looking at the essay passage. Either you are, completely taken aback and you think that the author has done a wonderful job, and you think that, he has done justice to his claim that he's making. Or you think you might need to critique it, obviously in a very nice way. So there are two ways of looking at it. Maybe you think that he's not made it credible enough, maybe there is evidence, or it has not been used effectively. Maybe he could have given some more statistics related to it. So it could be, it is going to be your choice. You are the person, you are the judge, you are doing an analysis of the writing. So do it effectively and exactly the way the examiners expect you to. Now moving on to analysis. Now this is where most of us lose marks and score bad. Because analysis हम लोगों को थोड़ा प्रॉब्लम होता है, हम नहीं कर पाते, हम जनरली बस पढ़ के हमें होता है हम उसी की एक जो है ना रीराइट उसको कर दें, but that is not what is required of you students. So basically stylistic persuasive elements. Analysis is based on these persuasive elements. What exactly the author has used to make his claim strong, to make his claim stronger, believable, plausible. How has he, put you in a position where you think that, yes, he is right. So you have to, give us some evidence from the passage in your essay to explain that you believe the claim and that, the reader believes the claim. Okay, arguments, types of evidences, and perspectives explored. References, tone, level of expertise. Of course, now sometimes the author might have used a counter argument to make his case even more fairer. He could, probably वो एक दूसरी side हमें दिखा रहा है of the picture, and then he's coming back to his point to make the claim fairer, so that the reader thinks, oh yes, he's right. So he's showing us another side of the picture, and then he's coming back to his own claim. So yes, that makes me believe that he has given a very good example here. So that is one way of looking at it. That is one of the persuasive elements, a counter argument. So it could be any argument. Types of evidences. Once again, these all persuasive elements. What kind of evidence has been used, right? Perspectives explored. What exactly is the author's general perception? What does he believe in? What perspectives are you going to look at? References. Yes, there is one more persuasive element, and that is a reference. How many of you have read passages that refer to research and all of these things? Sometimes, we read passages, they refer to some past research, and that is also one way of persuading the reader, right? So that is also an example of a reference. It could be to a previous research or something of that sort. All right, does your essay employ relevant and well-chosen details and features from the passage to support your own claims? Whatever claims you're making from within the passage, make sure you are providing information from within the essay to support those claims. Please make sure you're doing that. Essay breakdown, writing, the last criterion. We have discussed reading, we have discussed analysis, and now we come to the last one, writing. I'm sure you all are familiar that in writing, they want you to have a good structure of the essay. Of course, introduction, body paragraphs, and then a nice conclusion. And then language, grammar, sentence structures. Your language has to be, it could be simple, but it has to be in a flow. Please do not use repetitive words. Do not repeat the sentences in different words, because that makes your writing boring, monotonous. And then grammar, of course, where to put the colons, semicolons, full stops, and how to do your transitions. There should be a flow in your writing, how to go from one paragraph to another. and then your sentence structure. So all of these things are tested in the writing criterion. Flow of arguments, of course, when you are making an argument, how do you build up your flow? So that is what the examiner looks for. How skillfully did you craft your response? Is your essay structure clear? Does your essay have a clear thesis or claim? Yes, you need to have, a clear thesis that what the author has said, you believe in it or you don't. So that basically is your claim. Are the sentences varied? Yes, the sentences should be, different from one another. No same thing should be repeated again and again in the same sentence, in different sentences. Is your choice of words precise? Economy of expression. Say more in lesser words. Does the essay follow a logical progression of ideas? Of course, guys. You all know, you all are familiar by now that there's a general structure and there's a progression. You ultimately to your conclusion part by building up, a flow in your essay. Are the paragraphs, introduction, body, conclusion well crafted? Do they flow? So I'm sure all of you by now have a little idea of what the essay looks like, okay? All right, text structure. So like I said, ideally 500 words. When writing the essay, you must understand what the essay is about, find out how the author uses persuasive elements, like I just told you, in his essay. Pathos, ethos, and logos, because that will be part of the essay. What kind of language is he using? How is he trying to persuade you? What facts and figures has he used? You will always have your introduction and conclusion, and you can throw in some figurative language, similes, metaphors, personification, that you find in the passage and the roles they play in the passage. That is if you still have sufficient time. So अगर time है और लग रहा है कि author ने कहीं पर similes, metaphors, figurative language use की है, you could talk about that as well if you think that is making you believe in the claim that he's making. You have to provide evidence as to why you think the author has made use of a particular technique. For example, if you say that the author makes use of a personal anecdote, you have to quote a phrase, sentence from the passage where the author recounts his personal experience. And in this essay that you guys just got, there is an example of a personal anecdote, and then the student has actually quoted it in his essay as well. So you will get a very good idea of this point when you go through that essay. All right, text structure of the essay. The essay question asks you to focus on the most relevant features of the passage. So it would be better to pick out something that is obvious. Please do not go into unnecessary details, no outside information. For example, if the passage is about global warming, if you have any general knowledge, general information about global warming, don't quote it in your essay. Any outside information won't be acceptable for the examiner. And also, whatever information you're putting in your essay, the persuasive elements, make sure they are very obvious in the essay passage. Do not look for anything that is, implicit in the essay, within the essay passage. It should be very obvious so that the examiner could actually, believe your claims, and then he could make sense out of your essay. So pick out something that is obvious. Agar usne koi references या statistics use किए, obviously the examiner could also see that the author has used statistics, so you could quote them. That is a safe option. Instead of going for something that is implicitly there in the passage, don't go for that. Your introduction should consist of a general statement of the author's central claim, followed by a summary of the points you're going to talk about. Of course, there are usually 3 points. Central claim hota hai author ka in the introduction, and then koi se bhi 3 persuasive elements that are very obvious there in the passage, you explain them in the rest of your essay. The introduction and conclusion do not give you any extra credit. It is just a means to give your essay a complete structure. Of course, हम लोग अपनी safety के लिए एक structure है, intro, body paragraphs, and then conclusion. But then again, this is just our way of giving it a structure. Some of us might be good at, structuring it in a different way. So this won't give you any extra credit. We all have our own ways of structuring our essay, but then make sure it makes sense and it appeals to the examiner. Your conclusion should not include a summary of the passage, but of points you have mentioned in your essay. यही बात मैंने पहले भी कही है. Do not rewrite the content of the passage in your own words. Do not paraphrase. Just focus on the main claim made in the passage and then build up your argument upon it. Last point, what the essay is not. The task is not to simply state what the passage is about, example kittens, and it is not to share your personal opinion about the argument. Example, I agree that kittens are super cute. You're not going to say that, please. They're not asking for your opinion. Your job, explain how the author builds the argument to persuade the reader. So this is where persuasiveness comes in, right? You need to identify the point that the author is making. Example, kittens are cuter than puppies, and for that and other reasons, people should adopt more of them. Yes. So you think, that kittens are cuter than puppies, so that is one way of looking at it. Now you think that the author has given us something to believe in, right? And then analyze how the author makes the point, using examples drawn from nowhere but the passage itself. So if you have a kitten at home, don't start telling her details in the passage, please. Only the information within the passage is required. So that's it. Any questions? That brings us to an end of session 1, and I'm sure some of you might have an idea about what the SAT English is all about, and especially the essay part, right?